Welcome back. Now, the Zimbabwean government has denied human rights abuses amid growing calls for detained activists and journalist Hopewell Chin'ono to be released. Anti-government protests were stopped last week with reports of people being beaten and simply going missing. Let me bring you another perspective on this troubling story. The country's former Deputy Minister of Finance and Economic Planning, Terence Mukupe, is with us now via Skype. Mr. Mukupe, good evening to you. I'm interested to know what your assessment of the situation is. Apart from the detentions, apart from the protests, we're also reading today that the currency is on the verge of collapse. There is triple-digit inflation and evidence of rampant corruption.
All I just want to put across to you, Jeremy, is that you have to understand that our country has been under sanctions. So anything that you can talk about in terms of the currency collapse and all that, there's nothing new about that. And I think the government or the president is seized in making sure that they turn around the economy. But I think the thing that gives us pause is that when you have good intentions concerning corruption, where people are concerned about corruption, then they turn that discussion around corruption, and then it morphs into a discussion about changing the government of the day.
Well, let's talk about something which is of far more concern, and that those are the numerous reports of people being detained, people being beaten, and it is now leading the South African government, in fact, to send 2 envoys to go and see for ourselves.
It's actually a good thing that you sent envoys on the ground, because what they're going to find out is that all of this issues of detentions, issues of people being abducted and all this, there's nothing of that on the ground. There's not even any iota of evidence that shows that anything of this sort is happening. I think what you have to realize is that you're having people that have got sinister objectives and sinister motives that are reprocessing things that happened in the past and making it appear as if it's actually happening right now.
And who are those people, Mr. Mukupe, with the sinister intentions and motives?
I think last night Nelson Chamisa was on SABC. He basically took ownership and revealed himself as the main beneficiary of all this chaos. And he's basically saying, what started off as an honest campaign for corruption, which all of us were prepared to join in. As long as it's an honest campaign for corruption, we're prepared to join in that. But it then changed from being an honest campaign for corruption, and it became a discussion about ZANU-PF had to go. My president, Mnangagwa, had to go. So you could actually tell that, if you are having an honest campaign, why should you allow it to be used to undermine the rule of law and to
Mr. Mukupe, what I find utterly extraordinary about those statements that you've just made is that you're telling me that not a single person has been detained, not a single person has been abducted, not a single person has been beaten, not a single person has been taken into custody. You're painting a situation that is completely normal, yet many reports coming from Zimbabwe are painting the complete opposite.
So let me address each and every one of those. Zimbabwe is under a lockdown at the present moment. So if it's under a lockdown, where are you going to be having the clashes between the security sector and the people? People are staying in their homes. So there's no clashes between the security forces and the people. And then you find this issue of what you're talking of, abductions. They are phantom abductions because I don't know of any names, anyone who's been able to prove that there's any single person that has been abducted. And then you talk about Zimbabwean Lives Matter, and you want to paint it as if it's the same thing as Black Lives Matter. Give me a name of one person that has died in Zimbabwe at the hands of the security forces.
I'm not going to give you the name of a person that died, but I am going to quote the well-known writer Tsitsi Dangaremba. And this is what she said in a report earlier, and I quote, "I was in the holding cells with 2 men who had been tortured. One has severe kidney damage. She is a person of huge integrity and hugely respected by many." She is, are you suggesting that what she's saying is not true?
You tell me about her integrity. I'm hearing it from you. But like the last time that I realized or I know about Tsitsi Dangarembwa, she's basically been part of the opposition and been part of the voice that has never supported the government. So anything that she's saying, she's got tainted hands. That's why we're saying like we're happy that the South African government is bringing in objective
So
people.
the fact that says she was in holding cells with two men who'd been tortured, one who she witnessed with severe kidney damage, she's just making that up, is what you're suggesting.
What she forgets to tell you is that she had actually broken the law. You're under a lockdown, and she purposely violated the lockdown because what is it that she wanted? She wanted to court the international press and international media. Remember, there are people that make a living out of this. That, you know, if you're not going to have some sort of propaganda, you know, remember this is agitation propaganda. So with agitation propaganda, if there's no event, create the event. And she's part of that bandwagon.
What did the leader of the country mean when he said in a national television address this week that he was going to flush out opposition to his rule? What does that mean?
What I understand is that, like, you've got a situation where people come up with an honest campaign to fight corruption. But in that fight for corruption, you then start saying that July 31, we're no longer marching for corruption. We're now marching to unseat a sitting president. So you tell me, if I go in the streets of Joburg and I say, because of the corruption on the PPEs that's happening in South Africa, I want to unseat Ramaphosa, you think he's going to sit back and just smile at you?
Let me put this to you, that this narrative of denial that I'm hearing from you is very similar to that we heard for so many years during the Mugabe years. Isn't it time that people in positions of influence and authority, people like you, actually speak the truth and tell us what's really happening? Because what you've given me in the past couple of minutes is simply the ZANU-PF line and egged with a lot of spin.
You know, Jeremy, being someone who's attended your media strategy courses, I actually feel that it's unfair of you to say that the truth is only what comes from the opposition and what comes from the bad NGOs. Your job as a journalist is to be able to talk to all of us and we present the facts and let the public create their own opinions. But like, if you're now telling me that I have to toe the line, and I have to say
I'm not telling you for one moment to toe the line. What I find utterly extraordinary is that you have just told me that there has not been a single detention, no one's gone missing, and no one has been beaten at all. And that runs counter and contrary to so many reports that we have had from a variety of different sources coming out of your country.
And I've said, Jeremy, if there are people that have been abducted and that have gone missing, I'm prepared myself with your television station. We go with, you're saying that there are those people that have gone missing and we go and open reports to the police because there's no substance behind all of this. It's all part of what we're talking about, a situation where people are trying to exploit the situation that's there in Zimbabwe. The sanctions have made lives very difficult for people. And the COVID situation has also made people become agitated because people are not making enough money. So because of the frustrated citizenry, you have people who are now trying to take advantage of the situation and the desperation of the people. And what we're saying is we have got nothing to hide. If there's any abductions, if there are any people that have been tortured, if there are any people that have died, please, by all means, bring out things that are tangible and not come up with things that
so
are just
when South Africa says is critical about the severity of this clampdown that is purportedly happening in your country, what you're suggesting to me is that they're barking up the wrong tree. They don't have the facts. They don't have the facts either.
When you're saying South Africa, you're referring to Julius Malema, because for me, that's someone, as far as I understand when I'm addressing Julius Malema, you know, leadership comes with responsibility. A wise and responsible leader will respect due process and the sovereignty of any other country. Zimbabwe is not a branch of the EFF. So I really don't have an appetite to engage on what Mr. Malema has to say.
I didn't actually mention Mr. Malema. I spoke about the South African government being critical. But I will take your advice, Mr. Makupe, and we will let our viewers make up their minds. The former Deputy Minister of Finance and Economic Planning. Thank you very much for joining me on the programme tonight. Now.